and they play that song. It's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll, that song rocks. I mean, if you want to get pumped up, listen to that song, and you'll be able to take on a whole army.
There you go. Great way to start a Friday. Welcome to Over 50, starting over, everyone. I'm Barry Edwards.
And I'm Merle Garrison. Happy Friday to you, Barry.
Yeah. Was it a long week or a short week for you?
You know what? These weeks for me have been flying by. And I think it's when you have a lot you're trying to accomplish in a week, and you're like, how am I ever going to get this done? And then it's just like, what? How is this? How is half a day gone? You know, I mean, it's been like that for me this week.
Yeah. My weeks have been like that too.
Now you have had you've had a transition with your house. You've got you finally finished the huge project when your last people were there.
Barely.
And really, they really put you to work on that
they
one.
They did. Comedy of errors. I mean,
as I was just, I guess, don't clean after themselves, right? And then
they broke everything, you know. It's
wow.
And I thought I fixed everything, thought I got a new dryer, the new used dryer broke. I told you about that scam. I got scammed on OfferUp. Then I thought I fixed the patio umbrella, and you know, it's hours before they're going to show up, literally that day.
Right.
And that's broke, so I had to buy a new one of those.
How do you break the patio umbrella? I mean,
there's so many questions.
These guys were destructive. My goodness,
they were very destructive. So, anyways, got the new tenants in, and I just met them for the first time the other day, and the guy's super nice. So I just got the new umbrella delivered from Amazon. I got the notice. So I told them I'm going to ride my bike over there and put it together at some point today or tomorrow.
Right.
And I did that. I just rode over there, I put it in. And as I was leaving, they pulled in, and
wow,
he gets out of the car and like, hey, are you Barry? And I said, you must be Barry. And no, I'm just casing the joint to see if I could break in, and had a little laugh. That's how we got introduced. Really nice guy.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit. And and he's got these two little foo-foo dogs that just came out of the car. And so like, wow, I didn't even know you had these dogs. They're so cute. And finally, his wife gets out of the car, and she looks like she's going to have a nervous breakdown.
Oh no.
And, seriously. She's just so distraught. And she says, don't you people recycle here? And I'm like, whoa, yeah, we do. What? And she goes, I just got back from the store and they gave me 2 plastic bags. And I said, oh, well, I tried to appease her a bit. So I'm not sure. We have had a problem with finding out that our recycle stuff was not going into it was not being recycled. It was just being thrown in the general dump.
Is that
even though we're paying for it? Yes.
Yeah.
One of those investigative reporters uncovered.
Let's circle back to that, but go ahead.
Yeah. So that wasn't enough. Then she said, and there's ants in the house. I said, ants? I said, well, I'm sorry. Sometimes in a wet spring, I will get some, but I can spray. All I got to do, I could do this right now. I could spray the perimeter of the house with Raid and it'll be done.
Right.
And she freaked out even more because the thought of Raid with her dogs, and she tells me how they affect the bees. And I said, about the bees. And she walks away from me as I'm in mid-sentence.
As you're talking about the bees. Yes.
Yeah. And the husband, the whole time, he's got that apologetic, sheepish look on his face. Like, I'm sorry, I know,
this has happened before,
but I can't do anything about it. And, that kind of look. And so she walked away, and he says, so, they're supposed to be through the end of June, but they're going on a vacation within this vacation.
Oh,
so he says, yeah, remember, we're leaving Thursday. And we'll be gone for 12 days. I was like, wow, 12 days? I didn't know that long. He goes, yeah. I said, so I could spray for the ants then, right? And he's like, gives that sheepish look again, which means right, but I can't say so.
Oh my gosh.
So So yeah, so I went in there yesterday because I also had the dryer. The new dryer was being delivered, so I had to go over there and fix that all up. And so that's
Right.
taken care of finally again
Oh, okay.
for the third time. And so, my concern is number one concern is the ants. I didn't see any ants, not to
No.
say I'm sure they did.
Right.
Like I
Right.
said, I will get them briefly in the spring, in a wet spring. Uh, but maybe they sprayed some magic biological organic dust and got rid of them. I don't know. But my first thing is when you got ants, first thing you do is make sure the counters and floors are all very clean. You don't put ant food out.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Dude, the counters were full of crumbs. The floor was
Oh.
stuff all over the floors. I swept all the floors, cleaned the counters and everything. And it's like, if you're gonna play the role of holier than thou, at least be in the upper echelon,
Yeah. Boy,
So
that's a tough one too, because they that doesn't sound like it sounds like you're in a position where you got to come back and say, well, okay, you need to make sure you clean up your crumbs and everything, and then that's not going to be pretty.
I'm not going to. I've
So,
cleaned it up. There,
okay.
I saw no ants. I was in there for
Yeah,
hours,
yeah,
so
okay.
it is taken care of. And I sprayed the perimeter with Raid heavily, which my 2 bottles of cans of Raid that were under the one counter were gone.
Right, right.
No, that's not cool.
Wait, so they threw them out?
I assume. Now I'm going to
Okay.
leave an open mind. Maybe they're somewhere in the basement, something like that. Like she couldn't be near them, whatever.
Wow.
But if they truly, because I bought another can, but that rubs me the wrong way if you're throwing my property out.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So, no, I'm not going to say anything else about it. What I want to do is actually make a point here, and it leads into an article that I wrote actually in 2018. But it's to the heavy virtue signaling. She's from California. He is originally from here.
Okay.
In the Heights. So that's why they're here to visit family. So
right.
The way I read into this is, he tells her, or at least this has probably been over the years, about what a great liberal utopia this is here. And well, she's from California, not to be outdone.
Right.
So they probably just got back from a family event where it always goes as I'm virtue signaling. They got a virtue signal harder, so I got to top them, and it's all passive aggressive. Like, oh, we don't recycle enough. Well, we recycle more, but you didn't recycle this stuff. That kind of crap.
Yeah,
and all really passive aggressive.
Who wins on those kinds of
nobody
arguments,
wins. No. So when she shows up, when you meet a stranger, and you lead with how traumatized you are over receiving 2 plastic bags. How do you think that comes off to the stranger?
Right.
And then to walk away from me when talking about getting rid of the ants. Now, if it was somebody that led with a smile and very nice to meet you. I'm sorry, but there's been an ant problem. And I say, hey, I can spray Raid. Oh, and then pleasantly say, oh, no, thanks. Just, it's bad for the environment and our dogs. But I have this terrific organic method that I like. I'm going to say, really, what is it? Because I aim to please my tenants, that's what it's about. And if they told me this pleasantly, I'd say, look, I'll be back in an hour. I'm going to go get that stuff. I'll take care of it. That's how that could have went. If you want to change the world, that's how you do it. Now,
absolutely. I mean, that's big advice right there.
And this is my point. It leads me to an article just a few days ago. I found I got a notice on Quora that this article that I wrote in 2018, someone just translated it into French to share.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I thought that was cool. And it's still under my credentials. It's I'm the author, but they translated it to French. I thought that was super cool.
Are you sure it says what you think it says?
Yes,
okay.
I'm sure.
All right.
And it's
trying to make a joke there.
Directly relates to all this. So the question that I answered was, a stranger poses the question, How is confidence and self-knowledge found if your natural tendency is to be socially anxious? Okay, so you're a socially
Good
anxious
one.
person. How do you find confidence and self-knowledge?
Yeah.
Well, it's story of my life. I've kind of dealt with that, which is why I read and share all the stuff that I do. I've learned a couple things, and I found some things that worked for me. So really felt compelled to write this article about it, and I'll share the link here. But I just wanted to share the main points. I had 4 main points that I made in it, and before I get to the 4 points, I want to say it's small steps versus big steps. And I
Okay.
say the best way to get to finding this confidence and self-knowledge is through small steps, because big steps are, and I've tried them all. So this isn't a self-congratulatory article. I talk about my own failings here and being judgmental, fighting through that, trying to take the big step, which is fake it till you make it, which is being arrogant. Arrogance is the propping oneself up upon a big fake perch until you hit your timely fall, and you will fall because it's false. So it's inauthentic, and that's the long hard road to self-awareness. The small steps. I have 4 steps that are small. Never saying no to a new experience as long as it doesn't hurt you in some way. So that keeps your mind open. You meet more people that you learn more things from, and you just broaden yourself in every way.
Okay.
That
All right.
because
That sounds like a good one.
people that are socially anxious have a strong tendency to stay in a box,
Yeah.
a small box.
They don't leave their house sometimes.
Yeah, the extreme circumstances
Literal small
are that.
box. Right.
Correct. Number 2 is commit to staying very conscious about your judgments of others for 3 weeks. Staying impartial. Your way of thinking is simply a habit. Habits can be changed in 21 days with a concerted effort.
I knew the 3 weeks was in there for a reason.
Oh, yeah, we've talked about that before. And 3, find your faith, whatever that means to you. When you find true faith beyond yourself, you'll realize the interconnection of all of us and of everything. It will help you realize that you belong, that this is a life journey. This was a life journey for me. I had a lot of hard questions to answer for myself.
Boy.
And finally, and this is the most important advice I've ever received. It was, no one will ever remember what you did or what you said. They will only remember how you made them feel. That is the secret weapon to getting out of your own head and getting it in touch, empathizing with the person in front of you. So the question was about social anxiety. This was the number one thing. And I'm going to repeat it again, because it comes back to the experience I just had with approximately 65-year-old woman a few days ago, meeting me for the first time as a total stranger. And she was not thinking about how she made me feel. She was thinking about herself and her extreme virtue signaling to show how virtuous, more virtuous than me and the entire neighborhood, is what she announced with the plastic bags and everything. You people don't recycle? Oh my God.
I was just thinking that you could have pulled some Chris Voss on her right there and said, it feels like
you're right.
You are afraid that we don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah, something like
says,
that.
You know,
it
well,
would not
it's
have
not
gone.
that, you know, who knows how that would, but yeah, if she could learn some of that kind of stuff, like you're saying, people that have this social anxiety kind of thing, these types of tools to help them to ease into conversations and have them do more of the talking instead of you, then they have something that they can rely on to make them at ease in a situation like that. But typically what I found is people that are behaving like that, it's like, I think you nailed it on the head, is that really they're in a defensive position. They feel somehow threatened, and they use this grandiose type of behavior to mask the fear that's actually inside of them.
Yeah, there's more to it than that I'd like to unpack, that I don't have all the answers to. I'm sure you have more insight to, because you spoke very eloquently right there to that. And that is, where where did we go wrong? Like we grew up watching Sesame Street, and I don't remember Big Bird ever telling us that the more wounded that you look and the more you cry out in offense, the better it's going to be for everybody. And you're going to get your way and all that. Our parents taught us quite the opposite.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
how did we, and I've seen this happen with a large percentage of society, that in spite of knowing that these people have been raised differently, that I'm sure it has to do with mainstream media and the interconnected of us with the internet, but that our behavior changed. You know, you're hardwired as a kid in certain ways, how your parents raised you.
Yep.
But in our generation and older, we weren't raised this way. People changed. People adopted this new behavior. Now we are raising kids this way. We are. And that's a horrible thing. And this is a point I want to make before I want to stay on this conversation for a little bit and unpack it. But I want to say about this last point again, the quote, "No one will ever remember what you said or what you did. They'll only remember how you made them feel." That's so important. And I want to appeal to, I saw our demographics on our audio not too long ago, and we are easily 90% in a 45 to 59-year-old range. So I want to appeal to that audience. Of course, we're in that range. It's called Over 50 Starting Over. If you have kids that are in their 20s, something like that, have this talk with them. Tell them that quote. You know, maybe it didn't get through at one point, but even more importantly, if you have grandkids, pull them aside when you can and tell them, no one will ever remember what you did or what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. So leave them with a smile. It's the most important social advice I'd ever heard that will instantly get you socially adjusted correctly. And it's simple.
Really, really good advice. And it goes back to you, and we've talked about this before, but I just remember my mother telling me something very similar to that about, you know, going and having these conversations with people and the fear that, boy, I don't know what to say, you know, to them, you know, what do I say?
Ask them about themselves.
That's exactly right. Because when you ask about themselves, then people love that. They feel good when somebody's listening. That's the thing today. It's a lost art. Listening is a lost art. People just like that woman you're talking about. She didn't listen to you. She walked away. She didn't have the listening skills. She had the talking skills. Maybe that wasn't very effective either, but no listening. And when people know that they're being heard, boy, that's that you honor them when you do that. And they feel honored. They feel good. And you may not even say more than 5 words, but after you leave that conversation, they say, boy, Merle was a great conversationalist.
It's called active listening. And that is truly listen and then follow up with a question to what they said. Then they know that you not only listen, but you're interested in them. It makes them light up inside. You get an allegiance with somebody right there.
Yes.
It's important.
It's a big deal. I like what you're talking about here, Barry. I think it's pretty cool stuff. And man, this week has been a week where I thought about some pretty deep stuff myself. You know, I saw your buddy Jordan Peterson being interviewed. I say he's your buddy because
it feels like
you might as well be buddies with him.
I think we should.
I could see you guys hanging out.
I could too. I really could.
Yeah, I mean, what a great stimulating mind he has. I saw him being interviewed by Tucker Carlson this week.
Really?
I
gotta look that up.
Well, I've included a link to this this video in our show notes here. But what he said, I was kind of blown away actually by the eloquence that he spoke with. And I could never do justice to the way that he talked about this. But here was how the conversation went. Tucker was asking if Jordan was happy with the decision that he made several years ago when he had a run in with the Canadian government over free speech back
Oh,
in 2016, and he wasn't going to say some things that he felt violated his own ethics, and he didn't. And I believe he was fired for that as a
no, he
professor in
wasn't.
Canada.
They
He
put him
was.
up on charges, and no, they couldn't. They couldn't make the case.
So this was it. Tucker's question was, are you happy that you made that decision? And his answer was really illuminating. And he said, I wouldn't say that I'm happy that I made that decision, even though he's now has this huge platform to
That
speak into millions
that's
of
what
people's hearts.
jettisoned him in front
Right.
of everybody.
That's what
Right.
that's exactly what caused that. And he
Yeah.
says, no, I wouldn't say I'm happy about that. He said, because really for myself and for my family, it hasn't been all happiness since then. In fact, there's been quite a bit of grief. We've been ostracized in the news left and right. I see my family being tormented in this way as well. And it's actually been very hard. However, this wasn't a question about happiness or unhappiness. This was a question regarding the truth and
Mhm.
versus a lie. And he says, he said he made a decision a long time ago when he was young that he was going to tell the truth no matter what the consequences were, and just see how that see how that paid off for him. And he said,
Wow.
whatever happens, I wrote some notes here on a
Yeah.
napkin when I heard this, because I
Did
was
you really?
so excited about what he said. He says, whatever happens when you tell the truth is the best. He says, reality is best constituted with the truth versus a lie. And he
Yeah.
says, no matter what the consequences are by telling the truth, it's the best thing that could happen because the truth is the best of all possibilities. And this actually, telling the truth, actually becomes an article of faith. And he's talking about truth in speech, and there's divine significance in truth in speech, and it's the fundamental presupposition that our culture is based on. So he says,
Yes.
act out in truth and accept the consequences. And he says, because if you act out in a lie, there's going to be consequences to that as well. You're going to pay a price either way. He said, so you have a choice. Do you want to have the truth behind you, or do you want to hide behind a lie?
That's so good. And here, I'd say very simply is if you trying to navigate via the truth, at least you could correct your course correctly. When
Yes.
when you're working behind these lies, course corrections are just more manipulation. You're going in an endless, you're paddling in a circle, you know? The truth, you're able to correct it. So, I mean, everything he said right there is spot on. I remember saying to you about a week ago that he said one time, speaking as a clinical psychologist, no one gets away with anything.
Yes.
Even
I
if
I
you've,
totally agree with that.
right, everyone pays a price.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's
And
what
he's
he's
so
speaking
right.
to right there. Yeah.
He is right. He is right. And look, by telling the truth, by standing up for what is hard,
Mhm.
it has not been easy for him. The truth is foreign sometimes in this world. It really seems like it.
Now
The
more than
hard the
ever.
hard thing is to tell the truth now more than ever. Look at what we're dealing with right now in our society. It's really all about the truth versus a lie.
Mhm.
And when I really think about it, it's his whole premise around reality and the truth and living in reality. Would you rather live in reality than a lie? And a lot of times reality is very, very hard to face.
Mhm.
But we live in a day now, especially when it comes to the truth about our freedoms and where our liberties come from, and a lot of those liberties and freedoms are being taken away, and life in general is so vacant without those types of liberties and
Yeah.
freedoms, and life, you have to realize, or you have to come to a point in your life where you have to realize, um the truth is actually more important than life itself, and even my own life. I would hate to die because I was beholden to a lie, hiding behind a lie all my life. When I could stand for the truth. We're all going to die. I mean, nobody gets out of it. Like Jim Morrison said, nobody gets out of here alive. We might as well stand for integrity and the truth. That's what stands the test of time. Stand for something for your family, for your friends, for the people around you. Be an example, be a light, be a lighthouse. Don't go with the crowd. My dad used to say this, that when you see everybody going that way, you go that way.
Yeah.
And the Bible puts it this way: the road is wide on the way to hell, but narrow is the path on the way to heaven. It's usually the hard way that produces the greatest results.
Agree.
So I just like the integrity that Jordan Peterson comes out with when he talks about this in such truth and integrity that, it's not about happiness, but ultimately, if you live in truth, no matter what happens, no matter what torture or suffering or hardness you have to go through, you can still have a joy in your heart that you stood for what's right. And I think at the end of the day, that's really all I want to do.
And you also earn the respect of the people that follow truth as well. And the far left always wants to call him a radical right influencer. And I see that on Quora all the time. And I correct them and say, he considers himself a classical British liberal.
I see him that way.
The thing is, he certainly is. And he is right leaning, though, as he admits. But the people on the left, as soon as they slap a label on something like that, now they don't have to explore it. It's just,
that's right.
Yeah, yes. It's condemned, and now it's put away, and they can move forward. Because if they explore him, that's how he got. Oh my God, his YouTube videos are all about people on the far left trying to out debate him and make a fool of him, and they make fools of themselves. We talked about
so awesome. I love watching
best one. Hey guys, I got to tell you, if you look up one Jordan Peterson video ever, you will really enjoy it. It's the one. Look up Jordan Peterson, Kathy Newman.
Yep.
And she spent there's one in particular, one version of that interview that's shared that is so funny because she spends the entire interviewing. She asks him a question, he replies, and she retorts with, "So what you're saying is,"
and then which was totally not what he was saying.
Twist what he says, and every time he goes, "No, that's not at all what I'm saying," and he re-explains it. And the one version of this, they put up a scoreboard, and it's bing, and it 44 times, I believe, that they went through this. And at the end, and she's their Pierce Morgan kind of hard line interviewer type thing.
Yeah.
By the end of it, she was tripping over her own words. She didn't know what to say. And it's a notorious video. She made a fool of herself. And it's like the pinnacle of what, and Jordan Peterson's not trying to make a fool out of anyone, and he's very well behaved.
He is.
They're the one that are behaving very illy, and he just lets it show, and he backs it up with scientific facts because he's a scientist.
Well, the thing that I really respect about how he, in particular in that one, is what you just mentioned: his composure, his calm demeanor, his voice inflection, how he keeps it down at a low level. He never becomes super emotional. He's making facial expressions. He's not being monotone or anything like that, but he's being very matter of fact.
Never loses his cool.
And I really believe, because what we're seeing is, you really brought up a distinction between liberals and leftists. We've talked about that many times. They are very, very different from each other, although the left can very much be like a chameleon and look like liberalism, but it's not classic.
It's a lie. We're talking about truth versus lies. It's living a lie.
Liberals are honor the truth. The left does not, and so that therein lies the big difference right there. But this is It's really pretty amazing when you start to look at what's happening here in the world.
It really is. Did you see this? It was this week. I read about a Jeopardy contestant
Yes,
that
the one
he,
that this is terrible. Go ahead.
yeah. So he wins his third match, I
Right.
believe. So
Yes, that's what it
when he
was.
won the second, he like put up the two fingers, I guess would look like a peace sign. Hadn't thought about it. Then when he did 1-3, he put up three fingers, but it made a like an O
He
out of
held
his
them by his
index.
chest like this.
Oh,
This is
okay.
how he did it. But this is the sign, the okay sign that they've turned into
White
white
supremacy.
white it says white privilege. Okay, so white,
Oh,
the W,
oh.
and then the P.
Well, I'm
That's
glad
what
I know
that's
that
what they
now.
okay, who knew that, right?
It didn't
We've all
exist.
been going, hey, okay,
Right.
I do it. I'm
Little
not making a
rascals.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, they're white privilege. It's so ridiculous how
It's a
somebody
lie.
somewhere makes up this, that's a white privilege sign. So, but doesn't tell anybody else that it's the new sign. So whenever anybody makes
Yeah.
it, it incriminates them. And
It's
yeah,
ridiculous. They're
this
making
was
stuff up left and right.
so what's interesting about that is that within the same week, it was Anderson Cooper ends up hosting Jeopardy, and he sets a record. So I think this is really awesome.
Hmm.
He sets a record for the lowest ratings of any guest host in the show's
Oh,
history.
really?
And it seems to have a lot to do with this whole wokeism kind of thing, and it dovetails right into that whole thing. On the show Jeopardy, my brother loves that show, by the way.
I
He
could
was
see
a
that.
big Alex Trebek fan.
Oh, it
um,
seems like it seemed
he
like such a decent guy.
apparently he was, and just very lovable to many
Mm-hmm.
people, and my brother adored him.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, so Anderson Cooper's on the show right after this whole debacle with the former contestants of Jeopardy writing a letter in. All of the apparently it was on behalf of hundreds of them saying, this was white privilege sign, and why didn't you catch this? But it had nothing to do with that. And then Anderson Cooper comes in. The fact of the matter is, the whole woke thing is not popular. We're seeing
That's
where
right.
a new study just came out, and it was by one of the universities. I can't remember which one it is. I don't have the notes in front of me, but it was really showing where the people are not behind this in massive degrees,
Mm-hmm.
considering the woke move by Coca-Cola and Major League Baseball
Yeah.
and Delta Airlines. They just did a survey where it was showing a massive 60+% heavily disfavored those actions by those
Sure.
companies. They're just not buying into it. But we hear the media, we see the social media, and you would think everybody's down for this whole thing, but it's
Right.
just not the way that it is.
And you know what's interesting about that? I just saw a really good segment of Crystal and Sagar.
Oh yeah.
The Rise, I think is their
Okay.
name of their show. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I just know their names. I like them though.
I do too. They were talking about this, and you and I were talking about how could these companies that are failing, at least to some extent, go down this, like Gillette did the whole
Yes.
toxic masculinity commercial. That's like, what? You just
Crazy.
insulted
Yeah.
your target audience. But
100%.
they had a really interesting and simple take on it that I'm sure there's a lot of truth to. And it's simple. It's simply like an individual. If you virtue signal out there first, now you're untouchable. Now you can't be accused of not being woke, of being of being racist or anti this or
It's
any
like
of
an
it.
insurance policy.
It's the same every individual does. If I virtue signal first, if I call you a racist first, you can't call me one. That's a horrible, horrible way to live your life.
It's a terrible game. That is horrible. I don't want that world.
I gotta hurt you so I could stand up on your shoulders after I beat you down.
I mean, come on. This world that we live in, I
people are
have a
seeing
defense.
through it.
I have to laugh. I mean, I have to laugh at these things. Otherwise, I'll be really angry.
It's
But
running its
it's
course, though. That it's full circle. The Black Lives Matters movement 1 year ago today was at its peak. Off of the George Floyd and any other video that they could find and crop out of context. And now, oh well, they got really rich. Those socialists that headed up the thing got very rich off of this.
Marxists, yeah.
Yeah, and so the hypocrisy is being exposed, and
But
to
is
call
it?
yourself a social justice movement when you're really perpetuating racism and hate, that's the whole damn movement. They
You
all
know,
go ahead.
it's so interesting. I've thought a lot about this, Barry, the whole thing with Patrice Cullors buying up all this
Right.
property on my street, by the way.
Yeah,
This is on her property is on my street.
in the whitest neighborhood around you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's up in Topanga Canyon is where all the old hippies. That's where they all moved to. There was a nudist colony up there, but nobody wants to see that. Anyway, I almost forgot what I was going to say now. Just like it's burning in my mind.
I can't remember her name, but the Black Lives Matters.
Patrice Cullors, that's right. It's so she's fully admitted that her and the other leaders are Marxists. They're trained Marxists. And when you look at Marxism, what she's done is exactly what Marxists have done. And if you take a look at, let's say, the Soviet Union, all of the upper people, Stalin and all the other leaders, they had the cream of the crop. They had the best properties, the best cars. They had all the stuff. It was just everybody else didn't have anything.
Makes rock stars out of your politicians.
This is what the Marxists do. They pump up this whole thing about social justice. Social justice is a new word, but it's the same thing they've always been doing, the Marxists, and they're doing something different than what Karl Marx actually wrote in the Communist Manifesto. The Communist Manifesto is we've never seen anything like what Karl Marx wrote in his book. And so this isn't exactly what his idea was, but it's the Bolshevik version of it. It's the Leninist, Stalinist version of how Marxism actually works, where you have this elite class that's untouchable and they control everybody and everything. That's not the way that Karl Marx actually saw it, but that's how it's worked out. And Patrice Cullors is a perfect example. I mean, as soon as she said that's who she was and that's what the organization was, this is the result. And
you already see the bastardization of it. If you want to see the actual full effect of it, Venezuela is a 2-hour flight south of Miami. It's very close.
Boy. No thanks.
Where
I'll watch it on TV.
They're eating dogs and cats and zoo animals.
Yeah, it's terrible. And the elites that
Did you know just in the late 50s that they were booming, that their GOP per capita was better than ours in the United States?
Oh,
just
yeah.
In the 50s. It wasn't that long ago.
Actually, at the turn of the century here in 99, 2000, I mean, they were one of the top countries in the world.
What a shame.
And it was their last ruler. I can't remember his name. He was the one that hated George Bush and called him the devil and everything. Anyway, these people, and he came in, and Hugo Chavez. Yeah. And one of the first things that he did was he disarmed the public with his gun control measures.
Sure.
And then these taxes for huge infrastructure projects and things like that started to happen.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah,
sounds very familiar.
And then he actually picked out a large group of people that he said were destroying the country, and that they actually were to blame for all the wrongs that are happening in the country, which sowed division within the country. Meanwhile, he and his cronies were taking over everything. And now this guy that's in charge, Cadron, I can't remember his name now, but he now is in complete control, backed by Russia and China and Cuba. So he's living the life with his cronies while people are eating dogs in the street. They can't defend each other. They can't defend themselves. They've been disarmed. We've seen them being run over in the streets with small tanks.
Yeah. No, it's disgusting.
It is. But see, it's important for people to understand this, because when you bring up Venezuela and you start to talk about politics here in the United States, we get a lot of pushback from people like Sean Penn and Danny Glover, and these people that love Fidel Castro and that whole kind of way of life. But the fact is that this destroys lives, it destroys cultures, it destroys happiness and joy and prosperity. And so we have to stand against these kinds of things, because it is this is the existential threat. I don't think that it's all these other things that we've been talking about. It's this. We have to protect against this.
Agreed. Now, the general pushback.
That's all I got to say about that.
General pushback generally goes to, well, not that kind of socialism. They always say that, not that kind of socialism.
Right. It's the good kind.
And then it'll go to the Scandinavian countries. And I've done some research on them, and well, I don't have it fully thought out, but they're in a period. They're in, like, nothing is forever. They are now in a period like Sweden. I always say Sweden, and Sweden was in the 70s between a rock and a hard place. They're in a bad place, and then they put some capitalist incentive behind their companies and started a good resurgence. So where they are now, and they're always being polled as the happiest countries, and
right,
and it depends on how you poll. I used to play a game for years. It was called Corona online, and the company was made in Sweden. The company originated in Sweden, and so I played with a lot of Swedish people, and you text and chat while you're playing. It's like pool, very much like billiards. Oh. And so I made friends on there that I played with for years. Cool. And I always got the impression that, boy, it sounded very, very socialist. Like, yeah, pretty much you had, your bare minimums met and everything. But the taxes were so high that you never were you're not well off.
Right.
Happiness, they didn't seem overly happy to me, but that's okay. Yeah. And what I'm saying is, first of all, they're considered capitalist.
They are.
Yeah, they're considered capitalist with very high taxes. They consider
themselves that, yes.
They're capitalists with very high taxes. So, yes. And also very strict immigration policies. So, and they're basically all like the size of one of our states. So they're small and they're controlled. Right. They're very controlled. And so it'd be like, I don't know, having Ohio, and you just put up a big border around it back in the 50s, or let's say 70s or whatever, and kept it seriously homogenized. And it'd be like having a big gated community. We're not letting anyone in except under very strict assurances, because we want everything our way and to stay our way. It's a lot easier to do in a smaller society than it is the United States. You cannot do it.
It's interesting. I love the concept that you're bringing up here, because I remember when Mitt Romney was running for president, this whole thing about federal health insurance was a big deal at that time. And he was running against Barack Obama. And of course, we got Obamacare as a result when Obama won that whole thing. But I remember the big pushback to Romney was, well, Romney, you were the governor in New Hampshire, and you guys set up actually, we're going to model our federal healthcare system after the healthcare system that you put together in New Hampshire. And they had a statewide healthcare system there that they did. The fact is, and Romney did a terrible job of trying to defend this, because sure, that works in a very small, like, gated community, where it's not necessarily that we're stealing from this one rich guy and giving all the money to everybody else. It's not like that. It's and it really goes back to this whole taxation without representation. These people are all local. They can see the neighbor, like the one guy that's really rich. They know him. They're not going to try to hurt him, because they want to help him. That's why local government is the safest. But when you have a national system with, nameless, faceless people, it's so easy to take
Always waste.
advantage of large groups of people. That's why this works in Sweden and
Mhm.
why it does not work anyplace else. And by the
And
way, and the Swedish people don't even consider themselves communist or socialist. That
right.
they've fought back against this whole thing that keeps getting pushed on them.
And you just brought up a very good point. We kind of touched on it before, but we are 50 individual states for a very good reason, because all of them with the different diversity and different kind mm,
The
business going
cultures,
on,
there's different cultures.
different cultures, but also business cultures and stuff too,
Yes.
different industries. So they
Yes.
all should be regulated individually
They
as much
should.
as possible. And we've gotten more and more away from that and taking more of the rights away from the states and made it under federal supervision. And that's nothing but waste.
Yeah, there's some great examples of that whole thing. You brought up industry where, a state that's agriculturally based versus a state that's technology
Yeah,
based, they don't have the same needs. They
not
don't
at
even
all.
have the same culture.
Right,
They're not interested in the same kinds of education.
right.
Everything's different, and so this is how the whole country was formed. Remember, they were leaving a very national kind of structure, and they were having taxation without representation, and so each of these 13 colonies were really almost like nations of their own, and with their own cultures, and it worked great. And so bringing that whole thing together, the states did that, and their whole purpose was to maintain their own their own rights and authority, and they believed in a strong local and state government, and with a national government to protect their borders and really protect them against each other. And look, now we're seeing where, but the states are the ones that were most powerful. Now we're seeing it's been certainly all our lifetimes that the national government has had all the power,
Yeah. Hey,
and it
so
gets stronger and stronger.
that makes me think of, I remember reading briefly, if you could speak to this. So Democrats are very concerned with losing the House because of some re-elections coming up, several, and even some redistricting.
Yes.
And so, what are the ramifications there?
Well, it's interesting because several states have lost representation as a result of the census. We talked about this a little
Right.
bit last week. And so states like California have lost a couple of seats in the House because look, this mass exodus in California and New
Mhm.
York and Illinois in particular. Look at these states. Look at the wokeism that's
Mhm.
happened in those states where they're pounding people with taxes, especially New York and California and Illinois too. They are especially going after the rich. They chase the rich out of the state. The rich are the ones that actually produce all the jobs, so the jobs a lot of times go with them when they leave the state. Anyway, the blue states seem to have lost several seats, and that's going to affect the next election. And the red states have gained some states. Now there's some weird stuff going on with the Department of Commerce now. The Republicans are saying, hey, wait a second. We thought we were going to win more seats because the Department of Commerce came out with estimates in December. And now that they've come out with the official results, they're much lower, and when they questioned the Department of Commerce, they were referred to the Joe Biden administration, which is out of order. The Joe Biden, it's the Department of Commerce has to provide the answers. So now there's this accusation that the Biden administration got involved and somehow fudged the numbers. So
Mm.
that's a bad thing that's happening. There's all kinds of really, you can go way beneath the surface on this because there's a history of what's called gerrymandering,
Mhm.
which whoever has the biggest census, when they lose seats and everything, that party is responsible for redistricting, and that
Mm.
means that the districts for the representatives change a little bit. And when you're in charge of it as a party, you can really swing that to your advantage
Yeah.
so that you never lose that seat.
Yeah.
So there's some possible changes that could happen there. But as we see right now, the Republicans are only 6 seats behind the Democrats in the House. It's what 212 to 212 to 218 right now. So that's really the difference. This is a very good representation of what's happening in our country as far as the Democrats and Republicans and how close it is, because when you watch the media, it almost seems like, oh, we got rid of that Trump guy and these guys, that thing is dead. No, it's not. You can see that the Republicans and Democrats are almost evenly divided across the country right now. And with a lot of these moves, like spending $6 trillion right out of the gates by the Biden administration, which is about 40% of our gross domestic product, well, maybe less, but still, that's a lot. We've never seen. In fact, we heard this that Joe Biden has spent more money in the first 100 days than we spent during all of World War II.
Oh, well, okay. Is that adjusted for inflation, though?
Apparently. But we're talking $6 trillion, Barry. I mean, that's like
we've got
unbelievable, Jack.
It is. We've gotten numb. And I know this was the intention. We've gotten numb to the word trillion. And trillion should make your genitals crawl up inside of you.
Yeah. You know? We should change the name of trillion to gigabillion or something. Mega gigabillion.
Yeah. Something that just sounds life-threatening. It's
an existential threat.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
I mean, AOC crazy. Throws it around with her degree in economics. She throws it around like
she does.
Like it's nothing.
She's like 2 trillion. We need it to be 10 trillion. Yeah. Like, where'd you pull that number from?
A year. Yeah.
A year. But so this is getting back to this whole thing. We're with all these moves that the Democrat Party is making. I mean, they're trying to make Washington a state. They're trying to. They've got these huge tax packages that are out there. And by the way, the numbers just came in from last month. They were expecting about 1 million jobs to be added to the market. This just came out this morning, and they only got about 250,000.
Really?
In fact, unemployment went up to 6.2. They were expecting it to be at about 5.8. And people are asking, where's the recovery here? Well, Joe Biden announced last month humongous taxes that they're trying to leverage against these corporations. And what happens when you tax corporations? They stop hiring, and we're seeing that happen right now. It's common sense, but really, Joe Biden's platform, he was elected by saying, hey, we're going to go after the corporations and we're going to go after the rich. And people are, oh yeah, go after the rich and the corporations, not realizing that the Reagan's trickle down economics are as Jordan Peterson would say, that's what the truth is. We've actually seen this. The data is out there. When you raise taxes on the rich and also corporations, jobs start to go away. And also they are raising minimum wage.
That's the one that bothers me a lot, simply because, and we've mentioned it before, because it's a federal mandated thing, and it's a whole lot different out in Iowa than it is in California or New York. And so $15 an hour means something entirely different. And it's just, I think it's ludicrous.
Well, this will have an impact on the general population. And so when we come to the midterm elections, I was trying to get to that this whole time, that 6 seats, and also with the census being impacted, that's in jeopardy, big time jeopardy here. So we'll have to see what happens. But boy, it seems like a runaway freight train in the House, because they're bubbling up such crazy bills every week. We see more and more craziness coming out of the House.
The waste of our money just, it angers me beyond words. They think nothing of it. It's endless supply of taxpayer dollars,
Totally agree with you on this. Hey, I want to touch on a couple of things here. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the Chauvin trial and the outcome of the trial, and how Maxine Waters and Joe Biden and many others got involved in the process before the actual outcome. And now, of course, we're seeing where the Chauvin lawyer files a motion seeking a new trial. So this is his appeal, and he's doing this on the grounds that the judge's refusal to grant a change of venue and the decision not to sequester the jurors during the trial, among other things, in a 10-point post-verdict filing. This is what I was talking about before, that this gives him a real easy way to get an appeal. And also, where are they going to find a jury now because they've really tainted the jury pool with the press. I don't know how this guy could ever get a fair trial after this.
No, can't.
And as a result, what we see a lot of times is on appeal, these guys end up walking, which I can't imagine the violence that would happen, especially with Black Lives Matter being involved. But here's another thing on that is that there's a report, a Floyd juror wore a BLM shirt referencing Floyd in July of this year, changing what he told the defense jury during jury selection. And so this guy has come out, his last name is Mitchell, and he's saying that he decided to come forward because staying anonymous, they were all anonymous. He's decided to come forward saying that staying anonymous wouldn't help push for change, and claimed that he had been pulled over by police officers dozens of times in the past for no reason. I got a picture in my show notes with him standing there with his son and somebody else, and he's got a shirt on that says, get your knee off our necks, BLM. So this is before the trial. So here's a guy that was somehow made it onto the jury who's wearing get your knee off our necks, BLM, and he's been pulled over dozens of times for no reason, suggesting it was his identity as a Black male that made him suspect. That doesn't sound like a guy that could have a fair and impartial opinion about the trial facts.
See, here's the thing is it has to be a jury of your peers. So you can't go to South America and pick some people up out of a village somewhere and bring them here because they're impartial. It has to be a jury of your peers. All his peers are tainted, all of them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there's no possible way that this guy gets a fair trial, no matter what you say. And
but if he walks, it's going to be ugly, man. And it's not just. That dude should not walk.
No, he should not walk. And what we saw was heinous. I don't know if it was, if we could debate whether or not it was murder, but certainly the guy deserves jail time for what happened right there. That was disgusting. But we're not talking about whether he deserves jail time or not. What we're talking about is that in America, you're supposed to be able to have a fair and impartial jury of your peers judging you. And it seems like our politicians and also Black Lives Matter did everything to cause a sort of a lynch mob scenario outside of the courthouse.
Oh, and Maxine Waters.
Yeah. And so, this is like the Old West when you saw they finally got the guy and they're like, bring him out here or we're going to burn the jail cell down. And that's like vigilante justice, and not social. If that's social justice, then that's vigilante justice.
It's
and that's
not fair.
That's
it's
terrible.
Not what we're based on. Hey, no, did we talk about last week? I really don't recall about the police station in Colorado that a couple of these cops tackled this old lady with Alzheimer's, and they popped her shoulder out.
Oh, that's
we didn't
terrible.
Talk about that.
No.
Oh, this was horrible. So, in the jail, in the police station, they're watching the video. There's a camera. Okay, I guess they have cameras everywhere in a police station, and so we are seeing footage of these two cops that were in the altercation, and they're watching the footage of this happening. They say, "Wait a minute, wait for it," and hear the pop. and they're laughing about literally
Oh.
dislocating this elderly woman's arm because she has Alzheimer's. She didn't pay for $12 of groceries or something, probably forgot, didn't know where she was or something. Anyways, so the two the instigating police officers are in a relationship, a man and a woman that are in a relationship.
Mhm.
And another female police officer was the one to leak this tape because she said, this toxic culture here has got to stop. My point to all this, as gruesome as that story is, my point to all this, there is a lot of toxic culture going around in some police precincts. It's very easy to have that happen because of the amount of power that they have and that they feel on a daily basis. Now, compound that with the abuse that they get too. So they throw in some anxiety into that mess and stir.
Right.
And, but this is my point. There is a lot of toxic culture out there amongst the police in our society.
Well, I mean, you're right. This is something that the police that needs to be regulated. The citizens should be involved in making sure that there's a check there. Obviously, anytime there's no check, then corruption is always the result. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We know that. I was just talking to Anne Marie about it, being spoken to in a rude way by police, and it's like, wait, you don't have to talk to me like that,
Right,
and
right.
I think a lot of it goes back to um fear and anxiety, that the beginning of our conversation, and being in a situation where you're actually afraid, and how do you mask that fear? I think that cops are having to deal with that every day. And when you see some of the things, boy, I was just watching we saw what happened in Columbus a couple of weeks ago with the cop that had to shoot that woman who was about to stab that other woman in the neck. I think that guy was a hero, by the way.
Oh, yes, he was. Yeah.
And
media, once again, is the
they
villain.
crucified him. Yeah.
No, they tried to
crucified
make
him.
something out of nothing. And
Yeah.
they couldn't clip that video as they usually do in a certain way to take it out of context. There was no way to take that out of context. That cop was a hero. He saved that girl's life.
It's really horrible how they've demonized these cops. Who they just reinstated the police officer that shot the gentleman down in Atlanta last year. It was in June last year, and looks like that even though he still has criminal charges against him, they fired him without due process, which is wrong. By the way, the mayor of Atlanta has stated that she's not going to run again. And the people in Atlanta are openly talking about the fact that she is the cause of the spike in violence there. She said that she fired him not because he deserved to be fired, but if they didn't fire him, that the whole city would have burned. And so that's not justice whatsoever. And you have to stick by, as going back to Jordan Peterson, you have to stick with what the truth actually is, and then accept the consequences and live with the consequences. Now look what's happened. The city burned anyhow, and it burned over a lie. And so Jordan Peterson, again, very right in what he was saying. But going back to these police officers, boy, I saw a video this week that Anne Marie showed me where this police officer went to arrest a guy at a house, and the guy was walking away. The police officer was right behind him, and he was telling him to stop. The guy was walking, and the guy turns around very quickly, pulls a gun out of his pocket, like he had it right here. Very quickly, he goes to point it at the cop, with his left hand blocks the gun. The gun goes off, and with his other hand pulls his gun out of his holster and shoots the guy several times. Right there, it all happened in about a half a second.
Wow!
And it's just like, look,
wow.
The job these guys are doing is
I wouldn't want to be them.
Super dangerous. These guys are getting absolutely no respect whatsoever.
Right.
They're being attacked on the street. They're being called murders. I don't know if you saw the video of the Hispanic officer pulling over a black officer this week, and a black woman this week who was calling the officer a murderer, saying that he was a racist, and saying that, and she
Wow.
was saying, "You'll never be white. You'll never be white." It's horrible. It's horrible how
That is
people are
horrible.
treating the police. The
Now
police
that to me,
are not
I
being
would say
respected.
that's a person treating another person horribly. And there's, I can't accept it.
I
There's no
can't either.
justifying that.
We
That's
saw
awful.
that happen here in California, and we saw the sheriff here in California, or Los Angeles County, Villanueva, come on and spoke very. He said, "Look, this when she said she was a teacher and she didn't have her driver's license. It was just a crazy thing. She was the police officer. Fortunately, was filming this whole thing with his own." Body cam. I guess he had his own personal body cam that he was, and thank God, because he would have been fired. But Villanueva was completely behind his police officer, and how the police officer didn't respond in kind and was even polite to this woman, even though she said all these terrible things. These guys,
That's amazing.
they used to be referred to as the city's finest.
Yeah.
You know, Chicago's finest, Cleveland's finest, Los Angeles' finest. You don't hear that anymore. But these people will put their life on the line for you, a stranger, when the chips are down.
Well,
that should be respected.
See, we got a lot of cleaning up to do. And what I mean by that, I mentioned a little bit ago, there's a lot of toxic culture out there amongst the police forces in various places. Some cities will put up with it more than others. It's just how kind of corrupt maybe the individual
I think
municipality is.
Corrupt police.
There's a lot of it, I think.
I don't think it's the norm. I don't
think it's the norm either. I really don't. I think most of them are very good people, and with certainly good intentions. But the other side of it is, and we talk about this more than anything, is we need to change our culture. That's the thing. They're dealing with a worse culture than we've probably ever seen. And the entitlement and this whole pumping up racism wherever you can try and find it, fan the flames of it, and it's awful. So, and I do believe that's starting to change. I think though we need to start changing, just head a little bit to the lighter side, and then we got to slide into the after show. But I want to share something. I think this is a good transition one, because this is news, but it's not the super light stuff. Dude, did you hear that scientists claim to spot fungus growing on Mars?
No.
In the latest rover photos?
Really?
And they quote, fungi thrive in radiation intense environments. And I have a link to it, two different news sources here. And I think that's very, very interesting. I said before, I would be surprised that if we could do deep enough digging or exploration, I'd be surprised if we didn't find evidence of some kind of life, or at least past life, because it's the environment seems like it could support some kind of microscopic life of some sort, or fungus or something like that. So anyways, it looks like they have pictures of it. It sure looks like spores to me. And there's other evidence that looks like spores with stems on stems, almost like
really
mushrooms. Yeah.
Was this seen by the rover? Is that
and this was yesterday afternoon.
Oh, really?
It's late breaking. Yeah. So
interesting.
I have links to it. Yeah. Two different.
Okay, great.
Sites.
That's going to be
very cool.
Hey.
So yeah, there's several other things, but you go ahead.
Yeah, so my lighter side is that a caseworker adopts 19-year-old.
You can share. You could share if you want.
Can I? Oh my gosh. Yes. Okay, let me see here. Did you want me to try to play the video?
Either way, I saw this story.
I tried to.
The photos itself move like that right there. Look at that
right there. I'm not going to play the video because
that's fine.
It plays a commercial really loud.
Okay.
but boy, look at this right here. So this caseworker has adopted her case. Her case.
What do you say? The case that she took on.
Yeah.
When this girl was 13 years old.
So this is Leah Pacadis. And Manya. And so Leah has adopted Manya, and she had made a promise to Manya that she would find a home for her, and of course she's older, and it just never happened. So when she passed the period where she could be adopted through that agency, Leah adopted her. and this is a picture of them when this first became official. And this Sunday, Manye will be celebrating Mother's Day with Leah, their first Mother's Day. So that's such a nice
She
thing.
turned 19. She spent 7 years in this system. Nobody would adopt her.
And now they're both speaking out about adopting older children, which, there's so many of these children out there that are just forgotten. People are always trying to adopt the younger kids, of course. Right. And
it's like dogs,
these, and these people, they need a place to go. So, so congratulations to Manye. That is a good story.
I thought that was so touching.
I do too.
Let's see. What was another one that I was looking at? Funeral home with just a story about a girl. This is a simple little one, but I thought it was very cute and touching. This girl, very touching, was she was at a funeral. The girl was at her father's funeral. Her father was 41 years old, and I'm trying to share, and died very quickly of cancer, some kind of a cancer. And she was sitting outside the funeral home and saw this lady go by with her dog and said, "Hey, can I pet your dog?" And this lady was jogging with her dog. And she's like, sure. So she comes over. The dog just fell in love with her, the little girl. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's
and
adorable.
So the little girl invites this woman who was jogging into the funeral. And she's like, well, not dressed for it, but she did. She went in and they became very good friends and intend on being friends forever from here on. It was just, I thought it was so sweet because dogs sense sadness. And they try so hard to fill that void,
They really do, don't they? They're so perfect for when you're feeling depressed or whatever. You go over to your dog doesn't know what's going on. They just love you.
They just sense it. But they sense it. I always said too, I said this to you before, that I really feel sure that dogs sense when a dog person loses his dog and they have that void, because dogs just come like bolting up to me to try to I don't know, console me or just fill that
happens to me all the time. Sure. I mean, everywhere I go, it's like dogs, they see me, they seem to like me no matter where I go. I've got this dog, Barry, that in fact I can see them. They're like the where they live right over here, because I'm looking out my window, and this dog, he's taken a liking to me, but in a different kind of way.
Oh, I could see that. Is he on your leg all the time?
No, not like that. All right, easy now. No, this dog, I don't even know what kind of dog this is. It's a black dog. It's probably maybe 25 pounds at the most, and it looks like a black mop. In fact, the first time I saw the dog, I didn't even know that it was a dog. I didn't even know it was alive. I thought there was a pile of trash on the ground, and then it got up and moved and barked at me. It kind of startled me. Well, the fact is that on my way out to my car, I have to walk past this fence, and at night they put the dog out on their porch, and their porch is remarkably dark at night. They don't turn on a light. Every other porch I can see when I walk past it. This one I can't see. And that dog blends into the dark, and he always waits till I'm right just past it. And it just startles me every time. And it's like, I know that this dog is trying to get me. Like, he just waits until I get right there. And there's hedges all around, so you can't see him. Even when you're there, all you can see is his teeth when he barks at you. It's like, heck is that? So I've been thinking, and I kind of like this, okay, because it's sort of like a guy thing, like he's like, I got you again. I see him fade to black every time, like after he goes,
that's so funny.
How can I get him back?
Do you know the thing about truck drivers. So you're walking, like I'll be walking up to Whole Foods from the back of the parking lot, and you're walking by a truck, you're in your own world and all that. And they'll all of a sudden release their air brakes. That's like a thing for them. And they see if they can make you jump. Sometimes I just throw the middle finger back at them. But
that's hilarious. So we have a guy, and he must be a neighbor of mine. And he has installed a truck horn in his car.
Oh,
and
really?
I hear him beeping at people. And I can't imagine this guy pulling up behind me and pulling on that horn, because I think I would have to get new seats, at least a new driver's seat.
I can't. What is it like?
Oh, it's terrifying. I mean, I can hear it from my house, and it's just like, I can't imagine if I'm like a little old lady in a car. It just, that happens. Oh, look, the spores.
Yeah, I just want to leave us with that, because we're really over. We gotta.
Yeah, we are.
All right. So with that's actual picture of the spores. Seem to be spores on Mars. And with that, please go to over50startingover.com, sign up for our email list, and get these links like these spores right into your email box as it happens. And if you care to stick around, we are going to slide into the after show now. See you next week.
Right on.